Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the floret stitch. It has a simple 2-row repeat and provides really great texture. I personally love to do this stitch in really chunky weight yarns because it just gives this really great all over texture that is really hard to resist. I actually have used this stitch in a pattern using a chunky weight yarn called the Heather Super Scarf, and you can find that pattern for free over on my blog, theloopylamb.com. Hit that like button and consider subscribing to this channel because we're about to get started. So for today's tutorial, you're going to need a 5.5mm crochet hook. I'm using my favorite Furls Odyssey hook here. We're going to need a worsted weight yarn in your preferred color. I'm using denim from Bravo worsted weight line from We Crochet, and for this stitch particularly I find a stitch marker, a locking stitch marker, to be very handy, so if you have that on hand it'll help you out with this stitch as well. To work the floret stitch, you'll need to start by placing a slip knot onto your hook, and the floret stitch is worked in multiples of 2 plus 3. So for today's tutorial I'm going to be doing a chain 15. Okay, so I have my chain 15, and just as a note, the chain 3s at the beginning of every row in the floret stitch count as your first double crochet, and chain 1s at the beginning of a row will count as your first slip stitch. And I'll remind you of that as we're working through. So after we have our completed chain here, we're going to place a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, and working into that 4th chain, we will yarn over, place our hook into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through those first 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. That's a double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet in each remaining chain across. Okay, so I just finished my last double crochet of row 1, and then I'm going to yarn over and chain 1 and turn my work. Now once again, that chain 1 counts as your first slip stitch of this row. So this is where that stitch marker is going to come in handy, because we're going to use it to keep track of that, because if you don't, you do run the risk of losing that stitch when you're working subsequent rows. So we've got our chain 1, and then we're going to double crochet in the 2nd stitch. So skipping that 1st stitch and working into the 2nd. Then I'm going to pause and put my stitch marker into that chain 1 so I can identify it when I'm working my row 3. Okay, then we'll slip stitch into the next stitch. Now make sure that you're not working your slip stitches too tight, or else you won't be able to work into it in subsequent rows. So we'll yarn over and double crochet into the next stitch. We're going to alternate between double crochet and slip stitch across our row. Now when you get to the end of the row, you will work your last stitch of row 2, which is a slip stitch, into the top of those 3 chains that you skipped at the beginning. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work to begin row 3. Now once again, that chain 3 will count as your first stitch, so you're going to start working into the 2nd stitch. So we're going to yarn over and double crochet, and we're going to double crochet into each stitch across. All right, so when you get to the end of your row 3, you're going to work into that chain where you placed your stitch marker. Oops. So then to start our next row, we will yarn over and chain up 1. Again, if you want, you can put that stitch marker in that right now, because that will count as your first stitch. Then we'll double crochet in the next stitch, slip stitch in the next. And that's all there is to the floret stitch. Again, it makes this really pretty fabric. It's great for sitting in front of the TV for Netflix and stitching, because it's just that simple 2-row repeat, and each row is just so easy to remember. So you would just repeat your rows 2 and 3 until you reach your desired size of your fabric. And you can see that our texture is already starting to form. That combination of the slip stitches with the double crochet, it almost looks like a crunch stitch, but more evenly spaced out. So for my next row here, I would be doing double crochets across. And that's it. That's how easy it is to do the floret stitch. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to my channel. If you enjoy free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.